Hi, I'm Jurgen Strauss from Innovabiz, and welcome to episode number 6 of the InnovaBuzz podcast, the podcast designed to help smart businesses with an interest in innovation and the Internet of Things become even more innovative. Today's guest in the episode is Joanne Clark from Destiny Pursuit Coaching and Training. Now, Joanne is a fascinating interview today. She shared with us some really wonderful stuff around her innovations in coaching, particularly around how she helps business owners get over themselves. In other words, address the barriers and the hurdles that they have placed in their own way and achieve things in their dreams beyond what they thought they were capable of, and do that in a way that is a lot easier than they could have even imagined. Now, Joanne, what struck me in the interview today about Joanne, and what always strikes me in working with Joanne, is she has this uncanny ability to connect personally with her clients and with people she talks to, and identify exactly what it is that is holding them back from achieving their goals and their dreams, and then working with them to help that person develop their own solutions and their own strategies to achieve those goals. She likens it a little bit to holding a mirror up in front of people and helping them see what the barriers and the hurdles are. Now that brings me on to today's innovation tip. And the innovation tip is very simple. Get out of your comfort zone. Do something that you're afraid of. Do something that feels uncomfortable. For example, make a cold sales call. Get up in front of a group of people and make a presentation. Do something that you've been thinking about for a long time but have been putting off because essentially you're scared of doing it. The thing is that if you get out of your comfort zone and you tackle some of these things and you just do them, you grow, you learn, you develop confidence in doing the things that you're actually avoiding doing. Stephen Covey, in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about the growth zone, which is different to the comfort zone. And he says that in order to grow, we need to get out of our comfort zone, which is today's tip, of course. So, and the more we get uncomfortable, the more comfortable we feel with being uncomfortable. So the comfort zone expands and we grow. So look to grow, look to consciously become uncomfortable. Now, today's competition is sponsored by Innovabiz, and it's a 2-hour Skype session with me to work on your website to improve it from the point of view of delivering on the real objectives of the website. In other words, bringing in more sales, bringing in more leads, turning over more cash from your website. So stay tuned later on in the interview and you'll learn how you can enter the competition to win that prize. So without further ado, let's go to the Innovation Hive and get the buzz from Joanne Clark.
This is the InnovaBuzz podcast, helping smart businesses be even more innovative.
Hi, I'm Jurgen Strauss, and it's a pleasure to have with me today on the InnovaBuzz podcast Joanne Clark from Destiny Pursuit Coaching and Training. Welcome, Joanne.
Thank you, Jurgen.
It's a pleasure to have you here. Now, Joanne is a certified NLP trainer. She's a master NLP practitioner and trainer. She's a performance coach. She's a life coach. She's a speaker, an awesome speaker, and so much more. In fact, she's also a private pilot. She's a mother of 4 children. And yes, just like the rest of us, Joanne has 24 hours in her day. And she fits all of that in. So we're going to talk today about all things innovation in coaching and training and personal development and being the best you can be. But before we do that, I'd just like to announce our competition for today, and I'm offering today a critique of your website and a 2-hour Skype call to actually work on improving the website in order to get you more sales from that website and develop an action plan that you can implement immediately to improve the conversion of the website. So stay tuned later on in this interview to learn how you can enter the draw to win that prize. So Joanne, let's start by learning a little bit about you. When you were a young child, what did you want to be?
Well, as you mentioned in the intro, Jürgen, one of the things I wanted to be was a pilot.
Okay.
And sitting here in front of my double screen computer, I have the big photograph of my cockpit up in front of me, so I can always feel like I'm flying somewhere.
So that's interesting. So you actually realised that ambition at some point.
I did indeed, I did. When I had my children, and we used to drive around in the car, and that, as children do, they used to say, I want a horse, I want something else. And I used to say, I want to be a pilot. And then for one of my significant birthdays, my children actually bought me flying lessons. And so that was it. I had to go and be a pilot then.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So how did you get into then coaching and training?
Well, I'd worked as a senior executive for quite a number of years with a large organisation in Victoria, and what I wanted a change in my life. I was at that point where my children had grown up, and I thought it was time for a change. And I reflected on what were the moments in my life when I felt really in the flow, like everything was working, and I really felt like I was using all my strengths, and I was being challenged and growing as well. And I thought those times were actually when I was working with people to have them achieve, I suppose, almost their wildest dreams. It was kind of like exceeding what they thought was possible.
Yeah.
And those were the times in my life that I really felt connected both to myself and to the people I was working with, and really felt that I was making a difference. And that led me to think, well, what sort of work would you do in order to do that all the time? So coaching was the choice. Okay.
And so you did some extensive training with the Coaching Institute here in Australia?
I did.
Yeah. And when did you get involved in NLP?
Well, whilst I was doing my diploma with the Coaching Institute in Melbourne, they include NLP practitioner training in that. And I've done undergraduate psychology, and I'd worked in the past with people with acquired brain injury, looking at rehabilitation programs that would help them recover function. So I sort of had a bit of a background in how to get people to use their brains more effectively and efficiently. And when I did the NLP training, it was just like a key that unlocked for me a set of tools that could work not only with people with their brain injury, but even more with everybody, to make sure we were maximising what we were capable of. Yeah. In terms of getting really efficient and effective strategies, and it was just like a toolbox that unlocked the treasure case. So I really invested a lot of my time and energy and money in becoming the best I could be at NLP. And that meant being a trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting point you make there, isn't it, about investing time and money in being the best you can be, and educating yourself in the tools that are going to help your business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do you describe what you do now in one sentence? What's your elevator pitch?
Well, I do quite a bit of work with business owners, and my approach with business owners is I really want them to exceed their dreams, because most of us are capable of more than we can imagine, really.
Yeah.
it's fear that kind of holds us back often. So I want to work with business owners so that they really do exceed their dreams, and that can be easier than they imagined as well. So what I do is I investigate with them what are the things they do really, really well already, and how do they do them, and then maybe look at what they're not doing so well and think about changing how they do what they're not doing so well. And use the same sort of strategy that they're using where they already have success. So it's not about me telling them how to run their business. It's actually about me finding out what already works for them and spreading that more through their business so they can use their own effective strategies to build their success.
Yeah, that's great. So helping them exceed their wildest dreams is kind of the elevator pitch, yeah. And I like... so Joanne is actually my business coach, and I know how she operates, and she's awesome. And I like when you say, get out of your own way.
Well, that's right. That's right.
Because often we are, aren't we? We're in our own way.
That's right. The only thing really, for most of us, the only thing that stops us really getting to where we want to go is holding ourselves back in some way. And it's not, we don't do it deliberately. It's just what human beings do. And having someone external who can be like a mirror and reflect that back to you helps you realise, gee, I don't have to do it that way. I can get out of my own way and do it differently, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's great. So, what do you spend most of your time doing these days, day to day?
Well, most of my time I'm spending working with clients. Or looking for solutions for clients. So there what I'm looking at is if someone's got a particular issue or challenge, then I'll look for solutions that will work for them, knowing their specific strategies and their business goals and their hopes and dreams and the lifestyle they want to have. Working with them to find solutions to the challenges we've got so that they can overcome speed bumps on the way and really push themselves through. So, most of my time now I'm working with clients, and often that's in groups. I find that working with clients in groups, it's almost, it's not luck. There is an element of good management in it, I must say. But I ensure that the groups have a range of people in it so that they challenge each other. So the people aren't all the same in the group. They're quite diverse, and they challenge each other. And in challenging each other, they grow, because it is in the power of growth is in the contrast that you're able to confront and deal with constructively.
Yeah, that's great. That's an interesting point about groups, and I did an interview this morning that I'll have this link there. I don't remember the book name now that my guest talked about, but it was about mathematicians in Europe back in the 16th century, so people like Newton and Kepler and so on, how they actually communicated with one another in those days and bounced ideas off one another and sort of critiqued one another's publications and so on. Of course, it was all done by letters, which took maybe even a month to get a response back then, so it was kind of slow. But it wasn't that you think that these guys were geniuses and they operated in a vacuum and they sort of did all this amazing stuff. They certainly did the amazing stuff, but they actually bounced ideas off their peers at the time.
That's exactly right. I mean, the saying, there's no original ideas, some ways, like they've been thought of before. And the more you collaborate with other people, the more, I suppose, fertilizer you've got to grow your ideas with. And certainly back with the mathematicians in the 16th century, and also the physicists then, they didn't look at knowledge as something they owned. It was something they shared.
That's right, yeah. That's great, yeah. So what are some of the biggest challenges you face in building your business?
Well, I find detail really tedious. And in my previous careers, I've always had excellent executive assistants or personal assistants. And going into business for myself, originally, when I first started out, it was just me. So I had to do a lot of that work myself, which was very challenging. Everything took so long. I couldn't just delegate it to someone who was really, really good at it. I actually had to do it myself. Yeah. And there were some significant gaps in my capabilities around managing some of that. But even things like formatting documents used to frustrate me enormously. And, that is really the small business, I think, startup challenge. When you're doing everything yourself and you have to embrace skills and capabilities and an eye for detail, or perhaps a big eye for a big picture, things that aren't in the comfort zone. And so I found that very, very challenging in the early days. And still now, if I get drawn back into the detail, which when you run a business you have to do from time to time, that is definitely a stretch for me.
Yeah, but you do have people that help you do some of that detail now.
I do indeed. I do indeed. Yeah. And, certainly the internet detail, I'm very happy to manage for me. And I think building a team of people, and that doesn't mean everyone is your employee, obviously. You contract with professionals that you can work with effectively. Really has helped me leverage my time better so that I can focus on what I'm trained to do, what I love doing, and what I'm really good at doing. And that's what I say to business owners. Focus on those things. What are you trained to do? What do you love doing? And what are you really good at? Do those things more.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast yesterday, driving in the car, and the chap runs, I think it's Michael's Movers or something like that. I can't remember now, but he's got several multi-million-dollar businesses, and he said, things started to happen and started to grow in a big way when he was offshoring a lot of work to the Philippines, which is interesting because you and I both do a little bit of that. And he said that's when things really started to happen from the small business perspective, because all those administrative things and the things that he didn't like doing or wasn't good at doing, he could get other people to do that, and he could get them to do that much more cost effectively, and he could focus on where his expertise was going to add the most value.
Yeah, absolutely perfect. I mean, to me, that's the essential thing about having a successful business, is knowing what to do for yourself, what to stop doing, what to delegate to others. Now, you're always responsible for it. So it is delegation, not abdication. Yeah, but really being clear about what you're in business for and where your strengths are and what you love doing, because then your work isn't work. It's joyous. It's not tough at times. Of course it is, but you are connected with the purpose for doing that thing, and so that pushes you forward.
Yeah, great. So what's the one thing that keeps you awake at night? Do you worry about something?
Well, usually if I wake up, it's because I'm thinking about all the things on my to-do list. And I have to confess, I am a woman who's usually in a hurry. So I don't like leaving things for a long time before they're done. I like finishing. So I like finishing. And so sometimes I'll wake up and think, I haven't finished that. And if I'm awake for more than half an hour, I actually get up and do some stuff. And then it's cleared and I can go back to sleep. But yeah, usually it's that I didn't finish that, I've got to finish that, I want to finish this. And that's usually what would wake me up at about 4 o'clock in the morning if I'm going to get woken up. Although I must say I'm a pretty good sleeper.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting, because I kind of have the same problem. It's usually ideas and thoughts and things that I want to get to and that keep me awake at night, and then can't stop thinking about it. But it's another podcast guest, so Johnson Onking, who will probably publish today, or certainly be published by the time this episode is published. He mentioned that he does bike riding, interestingly enough, as his kind of one of his balance things, and he often does it on his own. And he said, it washes the mind was the expression he used, because it clears the mind and he starts to think of new ideas and stuff, because he's not worried about all the day-to-day activities, or he's not worried about what's going on right now. And so he talked about washing the mind, which I thought was fascinating as well.
Yeah, and it's a good a good analogy, washing the mind. I find with my flying, when I go flying, it requires a lot of attention and focus, and you have to be on all the time, and it's totally different to anything I'm doing usually in my life. So I find that is a washing the mind experience. I can go flying for a couple of hours, and it is like I've had a week's holiday.
Yeah.
It's just totally different way of thinking and being. It's very focused, and you're watching the instruments all the time, as well as enjoying the scenery and making sure your navigation's on track. That's my washing the mind experience. Although, as you know, I also do like cycling a bit.
Yeah, well, we've probably answered some of the questions coming up about balance, but as you know, I'm a keen photographer, and that's where I find that I completely lose myself in the photography and what I'm photographing, and everything else just sort of evaporates. It doesn't exist for that sort of time.
Yes.
So it's like you say, it's like a holiday.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of in the book Flow by Minhai Csikszentmihalyi. I'm not sure if I said his name right, but in that book he talks about connecting to the flow. And I think for me, washing the mind is being connected to the flow. That happens for me sometimes with clients as well. I can be working with a client and have absolutely no sense of how long it's been. Just lose yourself in the moment of being there. It's like being almost in a bubble with no time.
Yeah.
And just moving inside that bubble, dealing with whatever's there, and then feeling refreshed and rejuvenated and almost relaxed, or maybe even a bit fancy afterwards.
Okay. Ready to tackle some administrative task.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Might do those before.
Yeah. Okay, so when did you discover the web?
You mean for business?
Well, for you, yeah.
Me? Well, with my kids, we didn't have a television in our house. We did have computers.
Okay. Right.
Our children used the computers a lot, and obviously they used them for school. But that's really where our family entertainment was on computers, and we had it in the family room. Back in those days, I think we had a little Apple, and the computer games certainly weren't what they are now. I think there was something about finding someone in San Diego, or Carmen.
Carmen San Diego, yeah. Our kids grew up with that too, yeah.
So, we use computers for entertainment then, as well as obviously for research and study and, the internet specifically. I used it a lot when I worked at the Transport Accident Commission. Really used a lot of internet functionality there. And then when I went into business and at the Coaching Institute, obviously they were very keen to make sure we were using cutting-edge technology to give our businesses the best advantages. So a lot of the marketing training I had there was focused on utilising the internet for that.
So what are some of the innovative things you do on the internet today in your business?
Well, I'm building a website that is, I think, very innovative in terms of, for coaching, it's very innovative, in that I'm putting a lot of training online for small businesses. My target is really to try and tap into, I suppose, regional centres and country Australia, where there's an enormous potential for people to build businesses online. And I see that as a way for regional centres and country towns to almost like suck income into the town from outside. It gives them access to an international market for their products and services, and they can bring resources and money into their towns rather than everyone having to leave to get a job to survive.
Yeah.
So what I'm in the process of doing is building that online training and coaching through the internet, and included in that I want to have assessment tasks for them so that if people want to use it to get a tertiary qualification, they can have recognised priority and submit the certificate twos and certificate threes and the diploma in business. So that, I think, in terms of coaching, is innovative. Certainly some universities do a lot of online training. I did my undergraduate psychology, I did some units with Deakin many years ago, which was online. I'm taking it to a different level to that by having some online assessments for them as well.
Yeah.
So,
That's exciting stuff. Yeah.
Exciting project.
Yeah.
Because I'm involving you in it.
That's right. So I know a little bit more about that than we're talking about here anyway. So you've talked a little bit about what you do when you're not working. So tell us a little bit more about some of the exciting places you've flown to, or some of the exciting bike rides you've done.
Yes. Well, I've flown across Australia. So I've flown from Moorabbin all the way across to Western Australia down to Albany.
So Moorabbin's in Melbourne. Yeah.
That's Melbourne, Victoria.
Yeah.
So from the east coast to the west coast of Australia. And for those of you who are familiar with Australia, you will appreciate that's a long way.
Yeah. It's over 3,000 kilometres, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So that was a great adventure to go in a small plane along the coast, the south coast of Australia, flying over the Great Australian Bight. And it was at a time when the whales was active in the Australian Bight, because the whales come up from the Antarctic and have their calves in the Australian Bight. And so there's whales with little baby whales, well, they're not little really, but so we could go and look at the whales. And for that trip, whilst I did all the planning and had all the navigation done, of course every day you get up and you have to look at the window. And you have to find out whether in fact it's a safe day to fly. And will you be able to get to your destination, and will you be able to land there? And often when you're flying in a small plane, there's days you get up and you just can't do it. So, for example, my father came with me on this trip, and we were staying in a little place called Bordertown, which is basically a petrol station with motel rooms out the back.
Yeah.
That's the whole town. And I landed my plane there to the little airstrip, taxied the plane up to the motel, and then Dad and I were in the motel room and we had dinner in their cafe that night, and the plan was to leave the next day. And to leave the next day, we were flying into an airport called Kaiguna. But what we found when we got up the next day was the crosswind was so strong, and there's only one strip at Kaiguna, that my plane couldn't land in the crosswind. So we couldn't go. We had to spend another day at Bordertown. And so just those sort of adventures and you meet people coming through those roadhouse places that you would never meet. A truck driver from outback Australia who drives everywhere with his big rig and sleeps on it most of the time. And people love to chat and talk and tell you about their life's adventures. So it's a great way to meet people that normally I wouldn't have met, I suppose.
Yeah.
Then when we did get to fly off, we took off and we flew and we refueled on the way. We landed at a place called Eucla, and at Eucla they've got a golf course that's made of dirt, and there was an old fellow there who used to fly an ultralight in from the neighbouring town, and it was like one of those kite ultralights. He'd have his golf clubs and he'd land on the first fairway and then fly back.
Okay. That's a great way to commute to the golf course.
So all those daring adventures, flying across. Australia's a great country to fly in because it's flat. So there's not too many mountains. You have to go out of your way to find mountains to run into if you're going to go into a mountain. But and there's lots of airstrips. So it's a great country to fly in. Yeah.
Great. And have you read any interesting books lately that you could share with us?
Well, I have actually. I've got it here. This book I'm into at the moment. Can you see that?
Keegan Lay, How the Way We Talk Can Change the... Can't see the rest of it.
How
the way we work, yeah.
Can change the way we work. This is a really interesting book for me at the moment because it's talking about resistance to change. It's looking at it in terms of almost like an immune system and how as humans we have a resistance to change, an immunity to change. So we think we're going to change and we go through a process of growth, and then we kind of slide back to the dynamic equilibrium of the way things have always been. Or we might go backwards even further and, sort of degenerate a bit, and then we reach a point where that's not tolerable to us, so we'll do what we need to do just to get back to the comfort zone. And as a coach, this is one of the challenges, obviously, that many clients have. How do you put in place sustainable change so that you can make the change and it stays there? And then you can grow from that point rather than sliding back to same old. And so I found this really an interesting read. And it relates not only to individuals but also to organisational change.
Yeah, which is a big challenge as well.
Well, it is, yeah. Because you've got to get the individuals committed to the change, and then you've actually got to change the culture in the organisation as well. And then having it be sustained and maintained. I mean, often if I go into large organisations who want coaching, one of the first things the staff will say when you meet with them is, "Oh, we've done all this before." And, it hasn't been sustained for them. So they get rather cynical of change and innovation because they've seen it over and over and over again, and they're in that loop of making change, going through it all, and then back to same old. And round they've gone. So what I'm keen to do is work with organisations to build change that's sustainable.
It's a really important point, Don't slip back into the old habits, otherwise you've just wasted your time.
That's right.
Yeah. So if you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing in your business today, what would that be?
I would have a lot more systems already in place for my own business. I still spend a lot of my time doing things that really it's time I have systems for. So if I wave my magic wand, I would be 12 months ahead with those systems in place because they are all on my plan for this year to put them in place. So making sure my CRM is up and running, client relationship management system is up and running fully. Making sure my, all my reporting and strategic planning, tracking, reporting is up and online, and I can easily and effortlessly check that things are happening as they should, and also making sure I've got the systems in place to manage and monitor my team, even the ones that are overseas, so that I'm clear that they're getting the instructions they need to do the jobs effectively, and they're also got good reporting and accountability structure in place, so I can know that the work has been done.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So what are you currently working on then? Are you currently working on those systems, or have you got some other exciting stuff going on?
Well, I'm currently working on my CRM. So I've purchased Infusionsoft as the CRM of my choice, and I'm working on that and transferring my data into that system as we speak. The other exciting stuff that I'm working on, with my NLP training, I'm really keen to take that to a new level. Linguistic programming, which I'm obviously passionate about, was developed back in the 1970s. And whilst it has a vast array of tools that are relevant and applicable. I think it can go even further. And so later this year I'm investing more time and money and effort into learning, adding on to that through a method dynamics training around the Robotic Institute. So I'm anticipating running the first method dynamics training following my training in October.
Yeah.
So those who are in NLP in November will be getting two certifications. They'll have an NLP practitioner certification, and they'll also have a method dynamics level 1 certification, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, oh, that sounds great. Yeah. All right, so let's go on to our innovation round. I'm calling that the buzz. So it's 5 or 6 questions that hopefully we'll just get one-line answers that will be awesome and blow our audience away and give them ideas of how they get over themselves. So the first thing, I guess, the number one thing anyone needs to do to be more innovative.
They need to connect with their creative space, and to do that, you have to stop doing stuff. So you actually need to step back and think about, where am I going? What is the end I have in mind, and how I'm going to get there? How I'm going to get there are the steps you work out on the way, but first of all, you have to be really, really clear about what is the end you have in mind.
Yeah.
Then you can drive innovation with clarity.
Excellent advice. Yeah. And what's the best thing you've done to develop new ideas or new products in your business?
Well, I take some time out every year where I actually go away to a different environment and reflect. I do, make sure I'm reflecting on what have I achieved. So I do celebrate the successes I've achieved and what would be even more awesome for me to do in the next 12 months. I do a success wheel on a regular basis, so I'm looking at 8 areas of my business and I rate myself out of 10 on those areas of my business to see how well I'm tracking, and I set where I want to be in 12 months and just get really, really clear on that as a vision for myself. Then I go back into my sweat room, if you like, where I look at how I'm going to do it.
So there's a few key messages there. So it's assess your performance, measure where you're at under various categories, and then go back and look at how you're going to improve those.
Yes.
Great. So what's the best way to keep a project or a client on track?
Constantly keep them in touch with their vision, their purpose, what are they there for. As long as they're clear about that, then the wavering off track, they can see the cost of it themselves, and that causes pain. When you're really clear about your purpose and you're really committed to it, and you start going on these mighty journeys, you can lose sight of your purpose. So getting them back in touch with what is their purpose for doing what they're doing. Because doing it just for the sake of doing it is painful.
Yeah. So make sure they never lose sight of the end goal.
Right.
Yeah. That's great. So what's your favourite tool or system for innovation?
My favourite tool or system for innovation. That almost seems like a contradiction to me, because once it becomes a fake, it doesn't feel like it's innovative.
Okay.
I really do like the success wheel for people. Just quick, easy, simple, and in a snap they can see where they can get the most leverage. And to me, innovation is about identifying where you can get the most leverage. Focus your attention on what will yield you the best results right now, and deliver on the other areas of the business as well. So for me, I suppose the success wheel in a way is the tool I would use for people to decide where to focus their innovation.
Okay, that makes sense. That's good. So we'll place a link to some examples of success wheels underneath the video and the transcript of this video, so people can actually explore that in a little bit more detail. Yeah. So what's the number one thing you can do to differentiate yourself?
To differentiate myself?
Well, you or your advice to other people. What could they, what can other people do to differentiate themselves?
Oh, cool. Well, what I'd say, again, it is about knowing what you're really, really good at, and become familiar also with what other people are really, really good at. So know what your competitors are doing and know why they're doing it, and explore with them how to do it. So you can identify what your unique point of difference is in terms of what you've got to offer. I'm very clear about what clients I want to work with and what clients are not a match for me. And I certainly make referrals for clients onto other coaches when they're not a match for me. So when you're clear about what is your unique point of difference in the business, you're not afraid to refer people on if they're not a match for you. So identify really clearly what you're very, very good at. Some people might call it what your song is, if you like. And once you are clear about that, then you start to attract the clients that are a match for your strength.
Yeah, that's great advice. So know what your strengths are and what you're good at, and focus on that. But then also know who the ideal client is that matches that, and who you can help the best. Yeah. All right. Well, that's been.
If someone comes to you who's not your ideal client, refer them on.
Yeah.
Then you know that you're managing yourself in alignment with your values and your beliefs and who you believe you are. Yeah. Yeah. And that comes through. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great advice, and also you're helping that person, because the best solution is somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Well, what's the future for Destiny Pursuit?
Well, I'm looking forward to at the end of 2015, my husband will be joining me in the business, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
He has a very strong background in education, so particularly for my innovation around the online training, his skills and capability. He's a master's in education. So his skills and capability there will add enormous value, I believe, to my clients. So I'm really excited about that. And I'm excited about my new client relationship management system, which is a bit ironic really, because it is a system that requires great attention to detail, which is my stretch, yes. Yeah. But I'm excited about that because I can see how much leverage that will give me in my business. And I do suggest to people, just as soon as you can invest in a good client relationship management system, do it. Because it just frees you up to focus on what you are really in business for.
And we are talking about Infusionsoft here, so we will give them a plug.
Yes.
And it is a fabulous system that allows you to automate a lot of those administration steps that you referred to, and that you none of us probably like doing in business.
No. And for a CRM, what I am looking at is it needs to be integrated. I'm not really into the whole, a mail out system or I want it all integrated in one. And in the end, that's where you get the most leverage in your business.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and what do you see as the future for the coaching industry?
Well, the coaching industry has enormous growth in it at the moment. There's a lot of people becoming coaches. Now, the thing about that is people need to be clear what they're looking for from a coach in selecting their coach, because there's going to be such an enormous variety of coaches available. I think the future of the coaching industry, there'll be a lot of online training. For me, what I have been trained to believe is, as a coach, I work with people so that they grow and become more and more and more independent. So that as in the long term, if I've got a long-term coaching relationship with someone, it's because I'm coaching them on different things. It's working with people on the same issues over and over again. And I really am excited that, for instance, the International Coaching Federation has got good registration and standards in place now. So maybe it's an industry that's looking at more regulation and credentialing and standards. So they know, they've got a benchmark they can use to make the selection for a coach that's appropriate to them and their needs.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for that. And I guess one more question: the Internet of Things. So we talked a little bit about automation and systems. What do you see as things down the track from the Internet of Things?
Well, I think things like, if we think really laterally about how we can change even business models, you talked early on about the mathematicians in the 16th century. And for me, the internet opens up the notion that no one owns an idea. They're there to share, and it is through the internet we're doing that. I like the idea of the internet being used to really get leverage on collaboration where it matters most. I've seen some examples of it where people have put, for example, images of viruses up on the internet, and they've got computer gamers working out how to beat the virus. And out of that, they've developed models for treatment for viral disease. Stuff like that, it's almost like science fiction still for us.
Yeah.
What was science fiction, even 30 years ago, is now just normal life. So I like looking at the cutting edge. And I also like looking at that in the areas of things like humanitarian work in third world countries, and the whole notion that we can leverage off the back of things we do every day. For example, I do have another small business where I sell gas, electricity, those sort of things online, and the profit I make from that, which is a small profit at the moment, but the profit I make from that goes towards funding the hospital that Catherine Hamlin set up in Ethiopia. So that people using their gas and electricity is a source of funds for a third world country in health care. Now, to me, it's an exciting innovation that you can get from the internet that you couldn't have got before, because you couldn't even track where that money was going, or it was just all a big mystery around into the pockets of some major, international corporation. But ordinary everyday people now can use the internet to do things, small things like that add up and give us leverage.
Yeah, fabulous example, yeah. So work for the good of humanity.
And without having to do anything extra. It's not like a big drama. It's just me using my electrical lights.
Yeah. So, great. Okay, so just getting back to the competition then today. So I mentioned that it was a 2-hour Skype call with me to analyze your website and look at how to make it more effective in getting you either sales or new leads, with an action plan that you can implement immediately. So what we'd like you to do to enter the competition is leave a comment under the video and tell us when you've taken either a weakness that you have and spun that into a positive. In other words, reframed a narrative from a weakness into a positive, or taken an objection that somebody's placed in your way, let's say whether it's a sale or whether it's an idea that you're trying to implement, and reframe that narrative and spun it into a positive. So I hope that makes sense. That's leave a comment under the video and be creative. We want you to think about this one, but that's why we're giving away the prize. So, and in a couple of weeks I'll get Joanne to come back and have a look and award the prize to the one that she thinks is the best contribution.
Fantastic. I'm looking forward. It's a great prize, Jürgen. I know a few people who'd love to have it.
Yeah. All right. So finally then, Joanne, what's the number one piece of advice you'd give to any business that wants to be a leader in innovation and in what they do?
Well, it has to be get out of your way and just
get out of your way and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, this has been fantastic. So where can people reach out to you and say thank you for all the for your time and what you've shared with us today?
So the best way to contact me is via email. So my email address is joanne@destinypursuit.com.au.
All right, yeah, and people can obviously look at the website destinypursuit.com.au and learn a little bit more. So I'll post all those links underneath the video. And so thanks so much, Joanne, for spending time with us today on the InnovaBuzz podcast. It's been really fantastic. And I wish you all the best for Destiny Pursuit. And I'm really excited to see how it develops over the next 12 months and see where you end up in that 12 months' time.
Thank you, Jürgen.
Thanks.
It's been great. Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed meeting Joanne as much as I enjoyed interviewing her on today's podcast. She certainly is a woman in a hurry. There were some fabulous tips today, particularly around how you might identify the barriers and the hurdles that are within yourself that may be holding you back from achieving your dreams and your goals. And the fact that achieving your dreams and goals may in fact be a lot easier than you imagine. Many of the tools that Joanne mentioned, such as the success wheel, I'll have links to at the bottom of the video and the blog post. So look out for those and see whether they're of use to you. I think the success wheel in particular is one that may have great applicability to helping you assess where you're at in particular areas and then build a plan to improve. Now, Joanne suggested I interview Mandy Brasser from Streamline for Success. Now, Streamline for Success build foundations for processes, for systems, and for people to improve businesses. So it'll be interesting to talk to Mandy. So Mandy, look out in your inbox for an invitation to a future InnovaBuzz podcast, which I'm really looking forward to. Now, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or on Stitcher, whichever your favorite platform is, whether Apple or Android, and you'll never miss a future episode. So if you really like these, we'd certainly love for you to give us a 5-star review over on iTunes in particular, because that really does help to build our audience. And I just don't want to build the audience for my sake. Of course, I want to share all this wonderful information and experience from my guests with as many people as possible, because I think there's so much we can learn from these fabulous people. Now, all the show notes for this particular episode are going to be at innovabiz.com.au/Joanne Clark. That's JOANNECLARK. No hyphens, no dashes, no underlines, just innovabiz.com.au/Joanne Clark. So everything we talked about today will be there, as well as a transcript of the video. Now, remember to leave your comments under the video, and the prize is today, again, a 2-hour Skype session where I'll work with you to identify areas that can be improved on your website to get it performing much better. So tell us in the comments box where you've taken a negative or a weakness that you may have and reframed that and turned it into a positive. It may be that you've had an objection, that you've had a suggestion or a proposal to a client that's met with an objection. Tell us how you reframed that into a positive and what the outcome was. And in a couple of weeks' time, I'll ask Joanne to swing by, take a look at the comments and pick her favourite one to award the prize to. So again, give us a 5-star review on iTunes if you love these podcasts, because I do really want to share this with as many people as possible. So that's it for today's episode. You know what's next? Remember, if you don't innovate, you stagnate. So think big, be adventurous, and innovate on.